Coach, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your school and your sports program?
Sure. So, Andy Loughnane, I'm the head coach of the Misericordia men's soccer program. I've been in that position for what now amounts to 4 years and change. So I'm going into my fifth year. I joined the program as a head coach back in 2016 after a 5-year stint as an assistant at the University of Scranton, which is about a 40-mile or 40-minute drive north of here. In terms of our school, Misericordia University is a 4-year Catholic private liberal arts institution. We have 3 colleges within the umbrella of the university: arts and sciences, business, and health sciences or healthcare sciences. And that's what we're known for. So the health sciences programs are what creates a niche here for us. I would say over 50% of the members on our team are studying something in the health sciences realm. Maybe the most popular major within our program is physical therapy, but we have guys who are also studying nursing. We have guys that are studying healthcare management on the business side of things, but still connected with that healthcare college. We also have guys that are studying medical science in anticipation of hopefully joining our graduate physician's assistant program and becoming a PA in the future. And we have a couple of guys that are focused on hopefully grabbing opportunities at medical schools after they're done here and pursuing medical degrees to become doctors in the future. The remaining part of the team, in terms of majors, consists of guys who are studying business. Sports management is a big program within our team right now. I want to say we have 5 or 6 guys that are focused on that curriculum. We have guys that are studying general business and business administration type tracks. And we have a few guys that are into computer science, actually. So a nice dichotomy sampling of different types of majors within the team. And so, talking more in depth about our sports program, specifically Misericordia men's soccer is going into its 29th season. I failed to mention at the beginning, I'm only the 2nd head coach in program history. Our current athletic director, Coach Edkins, was the individual who started the program back in the early 90s. So he is a great resource to have in and around campus. Obviously, for me, being in charge of the men's soccer program now, it's nice to have a sounding board in that athletic director position that knows the game and I think feels strongly still about the game of soccer and helping the program. But over the course of our program's history, we've qualified 24 or 25 times, I believe, for the conference tournament in those 28 seasons. We've competed in 14 conference championships. We've had 9 conference championship wins, including 2 ECAC wins, and then we've been to the NCAA tournament 6 times. So it's a pedigree it's a program with a winning pedigree, a program that's had success over the course of its history. I was fortunate in my first season back in 2016 to join the program in a moment where there was a lot of talent in the senior class. And there were a large number of seniors that year. So we were able to kind of hit the ground running in terms of my tenure, win a regular season conference championship, and progress to the finals where we ended up losing in penalties. But the last couple of years have been more characterized by a rebuild process. After we graduated and matriculated out 16 players, our roster essentially had 12 guys. In the spring of 2017, we had a few members of the campus community that were interested in playing soccer that came in and tried out that spring, but we really had to focus a lot on the recruiting process, learning what worked at Misericordia during that time period, and trying to repopulate the program with not only talent, but a number of talented players. So there was a better opportunity to provide competitive training sessions, competition for spots in terms of the depth chart. And I think over the past 3 years, our focus has been just improving every single year to get back to maybe where we thought we were in 2016, but also to hopefully progress past that point and become a program that consistently competes on the regional level and starts to push itself into the national conversation. I know you spoke with our women's coach, and they've obviously had quite a bit of success in the recent past. And that's not to say the men's soccer program has not had success. We've had multiple MAC Freedom Conference championships right at the formation or the split of the MAC Conference into the Freedom and Commonwealth. But I think in the current moment, we obviously look at them as a standard setter. There's some other programs on the men's side. Men's baseball or baseball here at Misericordia has really had quite a bit of success. So we look at those standard bearers as markers for where we hope to go and what we know is possible here at Misericordia with our athletic programs. And I think the nice thing or the way to cap off this first question in terms of considering where we've been and where we're going, we've had 3 straight years of consistent improvement. It's manifested in the numbers. When you look at our record, when you look at the goals we're scoring, the number of goals that we're scoring each season going up, the number of goals that we're giving up going down each season over the past 3 years. And so we've been able to identify some markers that are telling us we're headed in the right direction. And that's an exciting thing right now for the program. It is a program that is built and predicated upon culture, specifically focusing on relationships. And we believe that focus, that higher purpose within our program drives what we want to do on the soccer field and as well as in the classroom and in the social environments where we interact with the community. So.
Could you talk to us a little bit about your coaching style on the field when it comes down to training days and also game days?
Yeah. I think the first word I would use is intense. I'm a intense guy, very focused, very prepared in terms of the way I approach training sessions and planning for games. I think my background has kind of led me to embody that sort of, personality when it comes to coaching. I didn't originally plan to be a coach. I was a guy who studied chemistry as an undergraduate, and I ended up getting a master's in biochemistry. So analytical, very detail-oriented, and that is carried over certainly into my coaching efforts. I think in terms of style, I try to adjust myself a bit to the group each year, while also understanding that there are some things that need to remain constant and need to be consistent in terms of my communication patterns and some of the information that we're giving the team on the culture side of things. I think when I first got here, typical of a young coach, I wanted to be very involved. I was vocal, both in training sessions and on game days. I've had, again, good mentors and people to watch. And I think over the past 4 or 5 years, each year, I'm probably a little bit different on the sideline. This year, I spent more time sitting down on the bench, and that was nice in a sense, but maybe a little bit less vocal in certain moments this year. Still willing to get up and say things when they need to be said. Still willing to hold people accountable. Still willing to offer positive feedback when I see it. But maybe as I've gone on, I've realized that it's a player's game, and I really want the guys to be able to figure things out on their own. I don't want them to look at the bench constantly for the answer because, as I just said, it's a player's game, and ultimately, I think some of the best teams out there at our level are the teams that have guys on the field that can consistently make good decisions, whether they're on the ball, off the ball, with whatever that team is trying to do. So I think my coaching style has kind of morphed in a way that hopefully continues to allow our players to be decision makers on the field. Um, Certainly, we want to offer feedback and help them become better with that. But again, that's understanding of personnel, developing relationships, and being able to communicate with guys on the field and off the field. And that's been a major focus, I think, in terms of adjusting our style, or my style specifically, over the past few seasons. So.
All right. What do you believe separates? Well, actually, you already kind of talked about what separates your school academically. You talked a lot in depth about a lot of different programs. So let's move on to what are some of the things that you look for in freshmen when you're recruiting them?
Yeah, so character, again, is a coined phrase that I think a lot of coaches would bring up at this point. We're looking for somebody who specifically fits into our culture. We have core values. Probably the most important core value we hold is being a part of a brotherhood, or understanding family values that go into being a part of a brotherhood. The other core values that we hold near and dear are accountability, respect, perseverance, and bold decision making in the face of adversity, which we just shortened to boldness. And so when I have conversations with first year student athletes, and hopefully have a chance to meet parents during on-campus visits, we really try to gain an understanding of, do they understand what a family dynamic kind of looks like and works like. And that's not to say you have to be from a traditional family to be able to play in our program. I think we're just looking for guys who have those intangible characteristics that would allow them to be part of a brotherhood, a family dynamic. So are they able to communicate? Do they have a personality? Do they have an interest in developing relationships with the other guys on the team? Those attributes early on are a good indication that I think the player would fit into what has developed into a very strong culture over the past, again, 28 years as a program at the Division III level. In terms of what else we look for after that, I think there are things that work at the Division III level in different ways. Athleticism is a characteristic we're always evaluating out on the field. Technical ability as well. I think as I've gone on as a coach and become hopefully a better evaluator and a better recruiter, in reference to Misericordia, I think I've really started to look at the understanding a player demonstrates on the field from a positional sense. You know, if they're playing in the central midfield, do they understand how to play that position? Do they understand what things they need to do specifically within that spot to be successful? And so understanding the game, being able to read the game, and having a game awareness has become of utmost importance to me, in addition to making sure that they have the athleticism to compete at this level, and they have the technical ability to perform in tight spaces, to play quickly with an increased speed of play at the collegiate level. And then I guess to cap it off, or one of the last things or additional things that I would look for, is just that competitive fire. I've learned as a coach that I work well with guys who are intrinsically motivated. They have an internal drive to get better individually. They have an internal drive to compete. I'm probably not as talented with holding hands and really staying close to somebody and guiding them step by step through the process. I think I tend to work better with guys who I can give information to, and they can take it and run with it, and they have that maturity and responsibility to be able to handle doing that. So I tend to work better with a guy who, like I said, is intrinsically motivated, has an inner desire to be better, get better individually, but also has a drive to be a part of a team dynamic and understand that, soccer is a team sport, and um, the way you approach certain conversations and certain interactions within the team is super important and requires somebody that wants to be a part of it, because it's not always easy. And so, again, it draws back upon that inner motivation to want to be a part of a winning program and be in a program that has a desire to continue to grow and get better.
All right. So, building off recruitment, this is a non-typical year, I'm guessing, for you and Misericordia. So, what have you done that's obviously different? Well, I guess this interview would be considered something very different, but what are some of the other things that you guys done?
Yeah, so I guess right off the bat, as you said, or as you alluded to, um, these sorts of interactions are more common now. A lot of Zoom calls, a lot of Google Hangout opportunities, lots of FaceTime calls. I find that the young men that we're focused on in the 2021 class are responding to that, as we've gone through initial meetings. Luckily, we were able to do a lot of off-campus recruiting in January and February. We went to a lot of indoor showcases out in Pittsburgh, down in Delaware, and so we were able to get quite a bit of exposure in that time period, and it left us with a good player list to kind of access and start to try out some of these new communication modalities that are just becoming necessary because of the current situation. So, like I said, a lot of face-to-face conversation through technology. We're also using phone calls, emails, text messages, some of the more traditional communication avenues that I think coaches would use in previous years. Um, I have watched a lot more video. I don't like necessarily recruiting off of video. I think you can gain a much better understanding, again, of some of the attributes we talked about earlier from seeing a guy in person. But I like the term video as an appetite whetter. I think it's a great appetite whetter where the coach can kind of get a feel for some of the capabilities the player may have, and it may entice that coach then to follow up with an additional conversation, or trying to, again, scheme how can we see this player play in the future. That's a major loss right now in terms of adding to our recruiting pool for the 2021 class, not being able to go to events like Jefferson Cup and the EDP Spring Showcase and the Potomac Memorial Showcase. I would assume is probably not going to happen at this point, but losing out on the better part of March and April in terms of in-person recruiting, I think has had an impact on everybody. My guess is the programs that, again, were out consistently in January and February at some of the smaller events in the region, and the guys that have been gung-ho about communicating as much as possible during this stay-at-home sort of situation or scenario, those are probably the programs that are going to come out of this looking or feeling a lot better about where they're at with their recruiting classes, as opposed to the programs that are not taking advantage of it. So we have taken advantage of that. I think some of the other things that we've tried to maybe accelerate are the conversations about, whether a student is acceptable or not in a certain academic program. I've really been in close touch with our admissions director to make sure that we're looking at the right type of students first and foremost, that can gain acceptance into the university and can study the major that they want to study. And we've also been managing the conversation about the application process. One of the unique things at Misericordia that provides, I think, an advantage for us over some other institutions is we open up our application process for the incoming class in June. So 2021s are going to be able to start applying to Misericordia, as far as I know, on June 1st. So managing those conversations, having guys reach out to their guidance counselors to let them know, hey, I'm going to be submitting an application to Misericordia. Can you get my transcripts prepared and help me get my SAT scores over to the admissions department? Speaking of SATs, a lot of people are up in the air with when they're going to have a next opportunity to take the SAT. So I know for the 2020 class that they're trying to kind of finalize the process with right now at Misericordia. They've gone to an SAT, ACT waiver or option where you don't have to submit those scores, and there is some leeway with the application process in regards to submitting those scores. Again, some people don't have the opportunity to take them, so the message or the feeling from the university standpoint is, hey, we should still look at these potential students for different academic majors, even if they don't have the opportunity to take the SATs or ACTs in the spring. I think we're probably going to get some more information in the near future here at Misericordia about what the plan is moving forward for the 2021 class. So yeah, the technology piece is huge. I think in our regards, specifically at Misericordia, having conversations, preparing student athletes to go through the admissions process and the application process, and then using video to, again, get a good grasp of some basic tendencies and abilities that players have, so that when we do have the opportunity to get out and see these guys play, we already have at least a little bit of an idea of where they stand. And I guess the last piece I would add is the frequency that we're communicating with prospective student athletes is starting to tick up or get shorter as well. Our goal as a program is to be in touch with our prospective student athletes going into May every 6 to 9 days. So essentially once a week. And again, we're not sending an email every single week. We're not scheduling a FaceTime every single week. Some weeks it's an email, some weeks it's a phone call, but we're really trying to take advantage, I think, of using this time to develop relationships with the 2021 prospective student athletes. And so that's been, I think, a really fun thing to explore as a coach, because I know that in our program, the stronger the relationships are, the more trust develops, and the more trust that develops, the better chance we have to get these guys going and understanding what they need to do as soon as they arrive here on campus. So, there's a little
one. Just one last final question, and then I'll let you go. This upcoming year, this spring, actually, the NCAA has issued waivers for eligibility for seniors. Hopefully we don't have an issue and the fall season can go off without a hitch. But what would in the class of 2021, what would happen to them if there is no season and those seniors do get a waiver for this upcoming year?
Yeah, so you obviously heard about what happened this past spring. I think it poses a few questions. One, does a graduating senior want to come back for an additional year to do maybe graduate school or to use that final year of eligibility? In some cases, it may make sense. In other cases, it may not. Ultimately, at the Division III level, our mantra is academics come first, or academic first, with our focus. And that remains true in our program. We want guys who prioritize academics as the number one thing, and then prioritize soccer as number 1A. And we believe you can do both without sacrificing the eliteness of one for the other, or vice versa. Um, but I think the question has to be asked, is it a good idea to come back? And again, in some cases, I think it is. And in other cases, it may not be advantageous to come back and use that final year of eligibility. Now, from an emotional standpoint, I think most student athletes want to come back and use that final year or that final term, semester of eligibility. You've worked so hard to get to a certain spot, and you may be at a point in your athletic career where there are more opportunities for you, right, to get on the field and contribute in a larger way to the program as you get older, and you gather more experience. So from an emotional standpoint, I think a lot of student athletes want the opportunity to come back if they can't participate in, a fall 2020 season. Some things that are being talked about, again, across the NCAA and with conferences, do you just play a conference season? Do you do an abbreviated number of games? And some of that gets tied in then with the financial ramifications of this public health crisis and how they're going to affect higher education or higher ed institutions. So what I would like to see is, yes, if we can't have a fall season, I'd love to see us provide waivers to give student athletes an opportunity to come back and use their final year of eligibility. I would prefer to see a non-abbreviated season, but I guess, if the powers that be decide that we're going to play only conference games, or we're going to shorten the season from, the 20 allowable competition dates to 10. I would like to get something accomplished this fall, but at the same time, we don't want to burn the eligibility of senior student athletes who want to finish up their year or their 4 years of eligibility and do it in as normal of a way as possible. So I'll be curious to see what comes down. I mean, the big fight in the NCAA right now is with the board of directors meetings that are going on. And it stems from the Division I level all the way down to Division III about making sure waivers are not provided to schools so that they can potentially eliminate athletic programs to deal with the financial ramifications. And the signs point to a good resolution with that conversation. The signs point to universities aren't going to be allowed by the NCAA to cut varsity programs or Olympic sport programs to deal with financial fallout. But I think there's still more work that needs to be done in terms of preparing for the fall and understanding what our options are in terms of, okay, if there is a season, is it going to be full eligibility, 20 games, or if it needs to be abbreviated, how does that play into the eligibility conversation? And then, the other side of the coin is, if we can't play and we can't get students back on campus and we can't compete, are we going to be able to retain that year of eligibility for the senior student athletes that are missing out? And my hope would be, again, that is the case, just as they dealt with it this past spring.
All right, thanks, Coach. That concludes our interview. Any final words?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me. I wish everybody out there the best of family health and safety over the coming days. And just as you are, we're looking forward to returning to a sense of normalcy. We're looking forward to getting back to work and being able to develop young men within our program. And from a university standpoint, we're looking forward to providing educational opportunities to our student body once this public health crisis has come under more control. But thank you again for giving me the opportunity, and stay safe and healthy, everybody.